Okay, so you should have that on. Okay, good afternoon, Radyr. I'm just going to pop in something in the Q&A, so you should be able now on your screens to have a look at that. And if you've got any questions as you go through the chat, then please pop the details in there. My name is Oliver Stacey. I work for the University of South Wales, and we're going to cover a few different things, looking at degree apprenticeships and Network 75, which is quite a unique degree apprenticeship offer we have at USW. And then the majority of the session is going to look purely at writing personal statements and how we go about that. I'm just going to hang on for a couple more moments just for any late arrivals, or even on-time arrivals, I probably should say. And like I say, if you've got any questions, if you pop them into the text box on the side, and I'll try and answer them as I run through. It might be that I save them, a few of them, to the end, or if I know I'm going to cover them a little bit later on. Dr. Rose gave me quite a lot of sort of insight of what you've been doing so far. So it seems like you've done quite a lot of prep already, which is great. And hopefully by the end of this session, you can certainly start writing drafts of personal statements. Hopefully have them all ready before you go on kind of summer break, I suppose. There will also be some tips of things you can do whilst you're in lockdown to kind of enhance your application. So do sort of take notes and things as we go through. So the first thing I suppose to start with is really why you might want to consider higher education as an option. The reasons that you may want to consider it are firstly that sort of employment opportunities and how those might increase. So your average starting salary for a graduate is £23,000, which may not seem like initially a huge amount, but that will rise quite quickly, and it's about improving your opportunities for kind of more managerial jobs. On average, you should earn approximately £10,000 a year more, and that is based over the average of every single graduate, so it doesn't necessarily mean it's a guarantee, but also that there's an 11% rise in graduate vacancies. Now, it's also worth considering that some jobs it's essential that you have a degree as part of that preparation. That shouldn't be the only reason that you look at university, but it's about kind of pooling together lots of that information and making the right choice for you. The other reasons you might want to look at university, just to sort of think about experiences and opportunities. So, for example, from our environmental and conservation course, we've got examples of big game tracking, geology and geography trips. We've got the opportunity to do your paddy diving course. It might be moving away from home for the first time, and kind of gaining that independence might be something that you think about. Some people, it's just about sort of meeting new people, experiencing new spaces, and bonding with a new group of friends from right around the UK or even from Europe or further afield. And finally, it's an opportunity to work with employers. There's lots of opportunities, certainly with our university, to go into an employer for placements. We advertise a lot of these in the summer term, and lots of our students sometimes take a whole year placement to get real valuable work experience as well. Other things you might think about with university are facilities. Obviously, every single university is going to have different selling points of things that they want to show off. But relatively, they are well funded in terms of the facilities they've got, and it is an opportunity to see maybe the elite of certain areas. For us, some of our best features would be our sports park, which is a multi-million-pound 3G facility, which is completely undercover. It's been used by the Welsh rugby squad, football, Welsh hockey. I think Cardiff Blues use it quite regularly as well. And actually, as students, you sometimes get an opportunity to assess and watch training sessions for those athletes within the facility, and within part of your course as well. That can be an opportunity to sort of film, analyse and coach. We've also got things like a crisis simulation centre, which we do lots of live briefs where companies will give you real problems and you'll have to come up with solutions under pressure, and they'll be kind of assessing your decision making all of the time. The other things that are there, we've got our crime scene training facility. So with our policing courses and forensics, there's lots of opportunities for mock-up crime scenes. And within this, you'll have the opportunity to sort of dust it down for fingerprints. And that whole house is there sort of to be remocked up on several occasions. Our aerospace hangar also has 2 full-size jets. So all of those kind of practical opportunities, and it's worth whatever university you look at. Certainly when you're looking in lockdown and through virtual tours, lots more of this stuff's been made readily digitally available, which is great in some ways because you don't actually have to leave your home to see a much wider range of universities than potentially you might have on physical open days. So those might be things to think about, is obviously employment opportunities, experiences, but also those wider facilities. How will they tie in with your course and what you're studying? The other things to think about are student life. So like I said earlier, it can be an opportunity to make friends with all walks of life, can broaden your horizons, your viewpoints. There's lots of opportunities for clubs and societies. We've got things like salsa dancing, rock climbing, a wide range of sporting opportunities as well. And as I said before, it might be an opportunity to live more independently or potentially to move away from home. So the first bit I'm just going to touch upon is degree apprenticeships and why you might do these. So a degree apprenticeship combines an apprenticeship, so where you're working with an employer, learning skills and developing your employability. So you're kind of learning under guidance, and a degree, which we typically think of as being a 3-year course, and either a BA or BSc honours, which you can study in a wide range of universities. Why you might consider a degree apprenticeship: there is the benefit that you'll earn while you learn, so you will get a wage, and that tends to increase each year through your course as you pass different sections, and that will help support you with your living costs. You'll get real world experience. You'll be working with experts or people who are within that industry. So whilst with a degree you might do lots of theory, and you will have some practical opportunities with the degree, with the apprenticeship you'll be able to take what you're learning in class and apply it specifically within a company or within an industry. You'll tend to get quite a lot of personalised support. So you'll tend to have a one-to-one or one-to-small group mentor who'll look at your work. They'll be guiding you through it and helping mark it whilst you're on placement. And you'll also improve your employability through sort of skills and training. So you are going to have the advantage that you'll have done several years working for a kind of high grade employer. Often companies who set up and support degree apprenticeships are looking to employ people. So if you've made a good impression over that course, then chances are that you're going to be one of the first people that they'll look to employ afterwards. It might also be that it just gives you a bit more confidence working within industry, and actually then you've got a much more rich CV when you go out to apply afterwards. And obviously, because you've got a full degree at the end of it, you do have a nationally recognised qualification. So you will have that on top of your full degree, and that's something else to sort of add another string to your bow. The one thing I would say with degree apprenticeships, it's a slightly different learning experience. It tends to be quite a full-on 5-day week, and possibly some time at your weekends as well to go through some of your theory. Whilst you might think of a typical undergraduate sometimes is around sort of 14 to 15 hours teaching time, depending on the course, plus your own learning. This will be much more rich in terms of the full timetable. At USW, this is just to give you an idea of some of the degree apprenticeships we've got live at the moment. So we've got things with operational policing, so you do a combination of policing theory, but also getting out on the beat and working with various forces. Engineering is probably the most widely supported universally for degree apprenticeships. We also have opportunities in digital solutions as well. So you can go onto our website, have a look at those. Lots of universities will offer them. I would suggest it's something that you can do and apply to in addition to your UCAS application for an undergraduate degree. The other thing I'm going to talk to you about is Network 75, which is a kind of unique offer to USW, which is a form of degree apprenticeship, but it's something that we're rolling out quite a lot. And I think particularly where you are based geographically, it's quite an opportunity that you could seize. So it's a 5-year sponsored degree program. So again, you're combining work and study. You'll get a degree at the end of it. You'd be at university for about 2 days a week, and then you'd work in a company for 3 days. And these are some examples of people out on placement, or studying throughout there. Now, the benefits of this particular route is at the moment, Network 75 is 100% employability. So every single person who's gone through that program has gone into good employability. You'll have 5 years relevant work experience, and you don't have any student debt. OK, so through the employer, they'll be giving you some support to live on, and they'll pay for your degree throughout that. We've got links with over 400 businesses. And again, it's about that networking and building up your support with lots of different networks. Again, you'll be paid a wage whilst you're learning. So that can be something sort of to build your financial independence and kind of learn the real value of work, I suppose. Here's some examples of what people have said who've been within that program. Again, I think a real strength of it is that ability to apply what you're learning continually as you're going through the process. Now, it's worth bearing in mind that it's a 5-year course, whilst a typical undergraduate one would be 3 years. So you do need to think about that and weigh up the sort of pluses and minuses of that as well. In terms of courses that we offer for our Network 75 programme, so we've got 3 different ones in engineering, we've got options in surveying, accounting and finance and law, and computing and business. There's also some examples of some of the employers that we work with and some of the accredited schemes that support our degree apprenticeship or Network 75 programme. In terms of industry links, we've done stuff with Network Rail, the Vale of Glamorgan, Barratt Homes. There's a wide range of different supporting bodies that work with us throughout this programme. And in terms of how you'd apply, so for this one, it's not the same as going on to UCAS. You'd gone to Network 75 at South Wales. What you'd then do is write a personal statement, much like I'm going to show you with a university application. You'd then be invited to an interview, and then we'll review whether we're going to make you an offer. Those of you who pass through that initial filtering phase, you'll be passed on to relevant companies that are looking to take on apprentices. They'll then make a shortlist, and they'll offer you an interview directly with the company, and then what will happen is you'll be conditionally offered a placement upon that interview. So again, I'd say this is a really strong one to have in addition to a university application, because it might be that you decide that you get a role with Network 75 and you take that, but also if you apply to university, you've got a plan B, or it might be that you weigh up the 2 options and decide you'd rather have a more traditional degree route. So I'm just going to check if there's any questions in the chat there. I appreciate it might be something that's quite new to a lot of people, but that is one option there. And then the next thing that I'm going to spend the majority of today's session looking at is a personal statement. Now, if you're going to apply for a degree apprenticeship, Network 75, or any degree, you will need to write a personal statement. Now, a personal statement is 47 lines long, or 4,000 characters, and it's about showing off everything that you've learned up to this point. So any skills you've gained, experiences, you might have taken part in Duke of Edinburgh, it might be that what you've studied in your Welsh back, anything like that would be really good experience. And it's about selling and differentiating yourself. So if you've played sport to a really high level, that's an opportunity to sell that. During lockdown, if you've read something or worked on a MOOC in your spare time, then that would be something that you could celebrate. So the real point of a personal statement is a chance for you to articulate why you want to study a course or subject. So it's kind of why that course is the right course for you, why the university should pick you. And you need to think about the different skills and experiences that you possess that are relevant to that field. So, for example, if you're looking at courses like science, it might be that you're really inquisitive. It might be how you're good at analysing data. All of those kinds of things can be, you're quite methodical. All of those things would be relevant skills that you could talk about. For different courses, it might vary. And very often, if you go onto university websites, they'll tell you in the course brief the kind of skills they're looking for. So it's worth tailoring it towards what the university wants. And these are sort of typical reasons why personal statements fail. OK, so universities are going to consider your grades will be the first thing they consider. They'll get a reference from your tutor and your head of sixth form, and then they'll also look at your statement. Now, some of the reasons that statements fail then is actually not showing that you're really that interested in the course. So you haven't really done your research. generally it's that you haven't shown enough desire to be within that course, or you haven't talked about experiences that you gained on a particular placement. So some courses might require you to do some sort of work experience element, and you need to make sure that you maximise kind of what you gained from that, why it was beneficial to you. So frequently asked questions then. So these are the things that most students tend to ask us when they come to writing a statement and what they need to include. Well, firstly, what do we want to read when we read your statement? What should you write about? How do you structure a statement? And then what do you do once you've written it? And we're going to try and cover all of those in that order. So the first thing then, what universities are looking for. So they're looking for that you understand what the course involves. And it's really important if you look at, for example, USW with our business courses, we run about 20 different courses. So it's really important that you look at the right element of the course that appeals to you, that you've obviously done your research and you've picked out the right one. What motivates you? Why are you committed to your ambition to being a dentist? What's the aim there? Self-awareness, are you aware of maybe sort of things that are weaknesses potentially or strengths about you? Okay, we don't want to be too arrogant within it, but equally you don't want to just completely criticize yourself. Have you got any relevant experience? So for example, were your A levels similar to the course that you're picking? Have they helped build up some expertise there? If you're looking at a course like medicine, have you done anything like St John's Ambulance? Maybe you've done care work, or any kind of relevant work experience throughout. Then you need to show that your enthusiasm goes beyond the syllabus. So what do you do extra to find out, for example, if your subject was geography? It might be that you regularly read articles in the National Geographic. It might be when you've been abroad, you've created a really popular travel blog, or you're involved with things like ocean cleanups or beach litter picks and coordinating that. Research skills are something we want to read about, and essay writing skills. So certainly if you're A levels or with your Welsh back, if you're doing an element of reading a wide range of subjects and pulling it together, those are the sorts of things that we want you to bring together and show off. When we say essay writing skills, obviously this personal statement, these 4,000 characters are going to give us an idea of your writing style. So things like checking it for spelling, punctuation, grammar and just general flow are really important, because they're going to be our first indicator of what your academic writing might be like. So firstly, I'm just going to give you some good, bad and some pretty ugly examples, just to give you some ideas of how people have gone about statements and maybe why they succeed or why they fail. I'm also just very quickly going to shut my door. 1 second. Oh, sorry. So the first one, from a young age, I've always been interested in. So have a little think. Do you think that's a good one or a bad? Actually, this one is quite overused. It might seem like quite an easy way to start it, but very often if you think we get thousands of statements a year, quite often this one is in the hundreds as a starter for a personal statement. Okay, so another one. For me, there was no eureka moment when I decided that my future lay in the sciences. Looking back, some of the key moments that contributed to my decision included a female healthcare specialist speaking at a careers event in primary school, an exciting practical STEM club in year 9, biochemistry workshops at my local university, and wider reading, where I found myself intrigued by the potential uses of graphene in cancer treatments. So that one is very original, it's personal. Okay, they've talked about experiences right the way up through school, and also how they've gone beyond in terms of looking at specific elements, in that case around cancer treatment. So yeah, if you've done anything like that, if there's things that you've read about that really interest you or hook you, then those are the things you need to include. Okay, another one, a history example. So it began with tales of gory mummies and eccentric monarchs, but my fascination with history has long endured the days of my horrible histories books. So again, that one might seem a little bit cringy. Some of these sometimes do, but again, it's quite snappy. It grabs the reader's attention. Obviously, if you take a picture of this particular slide and resubmit that one, it probably won't seem quite as snappy the second time round. But those are some ideas of things that you might want to include. I'm applying for this course because Again, this one is quite a simple one. It's a little bit too basic in terms of you've got to think of the volume of applications that we might have. And to whom it may concern, my name is da-da-da, I'm such and such years old, and I'm studying A-levels at such and such school. Again, in your UCAS application, it will include things like your name, your age, and what you study. So you don't need to include that kind of detail in your personal statement. That will all be contained within your wider UCAS form. Okay, a couple more then. So there's one on geography. I've loved geography since I was in the womb and could sense the world around me. Whether it be weather forecasts on ITV or doing dots to dots at home, I think about geography all the time. So this one, it's just a bit ridiculous, to be honest with you. They've kind of over-egged some of the elements. Whilst it is original, it isn't really that much of an idea of why geography has hooked them. They might want to expand on things like weather fronts or an aspect of that within looking at things like forecasting. Overall, I think I'd be an asset to any community school or college. I'd excel and pass many students and prove first and then to everyone else. Not only I can do it, but I never doubted myself in the beginning. So again, that one, they haven't proofread it. You can see things like capitalizations on the I's. It's a bit of a mouthful. So that would be one that you might want to relook at and proofread. And then last one is an English one. So storytelling in all its forms intrigues me, from the simplest haiku to oral stories of family history. Again, you can probably see from this one, the way it's delivered. Oh, hang on. The way it's delivered is quite an appealing way. They've obviously thought about it and structured it in quite a nice style. Often a tip I would say is maybe don't start with the first line of your personal statement. If you write the general gist of it, and we'll have a little look at the structure in a second, it can be a bit easier and then come back and write that very first sentence or two, because often that can leave people sort of stumped for quite a while. And the final one, I knew marine biology was the right course for me, so I strongly believe that I was a mermaid in a previous life. Now, think about the right reasons. The lecturers may not find that aspect as sort of somebody that they want to bring onto their course. I don't know. The final one we're just going to have a little look at in terms of, we had a little look at some of these and why they're good. So it's sort of snappy opening line. The subject choice is obvious. This is our horrible history ones. Then we talk about being the yearbook editor, organisation and time management. So we've got some really specific skills, but also that they compete in sport. Then we've got some examples of looking at the Korean War. Okay, so really a specific example from textbooks, and then how they've brought in some personal experience as well. Then we've got something that they've sort of volunteered to further their opinions. We've got Model UN. And that's giving an idea of what extracurricular activities they do, but also extracurricular activities that are really relevant to their course. In this case, they're looking at history. Actually, Model UN is going to be something that's very relevant, looking at that kind of evidence. And then pursuing that degree, we've got an eventual goal of going into the media. And also then we've got work experience. The fact they've worked at Oxford University Press is very relevant to the course, and it clearly links with their career aspirations. In that case, it really ties together quite nicely. So just to give you an idea, this particular applicant was made the following offers at these universities. So this is some snippets of their statement. It's not the entire statement, but actually was successful at Oxford, UCL, King's College London, York and Nottingham. So this is a very, very good example of what you'd be looking for as sort of a top level application and statement. Obviously, they did need to have those grades as well to be accepted, but this is a very, very good example of a personal statement. Just quickly going to check if we've got any more questions in group. Fabulous. Right. OK, so I'm just going to move on to looking at things that you might want to include in a personal statement. So these are things that I hope you've all done, certainly some of them, but some of them might be something that you have that's unique that you might not necessarily think of as being involved in a personal statement. So, for example, overcoming challenges or fears. You might have had to present your work either in sort of an exhibition or within class. You might have had to do presentations. If you're looking at something like business, that's a really valuable skill, is being able to pitch and present. What work experience have you done? If you're going into teaching, have you helped out a local school, or maybe you've coached a young year group in sport? Have you shown a real passion for your subjects? That could be something like helping out with like a school open day or open evening in that particular subject area. It might be that there's opportunities to be subject ambassadors, or, for example, on our course page at the moment, our resource page, there are opportunities to do subject taster sessions. So you could do one of those, and that would be something that would kind of broaden your awareness of the subject. It might be that you go and follow our Twitter page or another universities and look at some of the articles they're publishing. If you've done something like first aid, again, there's lots of skills that can be used for that. Compassion for others is a really important one. You might have had to help care for a relative or neighbour. You might have helped them out in lockdown in terms of things like their shopping. It could be that you've learned something completely new. So you might have learned a language, you might have learned how to play a musical instrument, or tried out something a bit different, created your own game, for example, or applied something in that aspect as well. So anything like that you've done, what I would suggest you start with is almost a mind map of all of the different things that you've done, and then start to piece them together into the different paragraphs. So something I'm just going to talk about briefly is about seizing opportunities, and this is very relevant to being in lockdown. So the first one is volunteering experience. So at the moment, there are quite a lot of opportunities to work within volunteering that might not necessarily be out of your own, without leaving your home. Okay, I don't necessarily want to put you in a situation, well, don't want to put you in a situation that you're not comfortable with, but things like Age UK, there are opportunities to do things like weekly phone calls to support elderly members. As I've said before, things like shopping. It might be extra cleaning of various facilities, anything like that, or raising awareness, or there's been lots of charity support events as well. Those are really positive things, and those should be celebrated. So if you get an opportunity to do those, for example, I know there's my granddad's neighbour who's 11 has bought him a newspaper every day because he's too old to go to the shop. Now, I think that's a pretty unique and cool thing in terms of he's gone out of his way to help somebody, and ultimately that should be something that should be recognised and rewarded. So if you've done things to sort of support your community, then those should all be on there. Certainly something you might look at the moment is new skills and knowledge. Again, I know from speaking to Dr. Rowe, there was somebody in year 11 who I think is looking at maths, who's done 2 maths MOOCs in their own time on top of their schoolwork, which is phenomenal in terms of what you can achieve in terms of the timings and other things that you have around you as sort of managing your day. The other things you might look at are things like building up a LinkedIn profile, or sort of building your kind of employability and your confidence around there. I said about subject specific sessions, so those could be things that you add as well. And the other thing is, if you know there's a company or an institution that you're really interested in, for example, if you know you want to go to Oxford or Cambridge, be any university, check out their website, look at some of the articles that are being published, show some real interest in that institution. It could be even you pick up the phone or email them to find out a little bit more about it. So all of those things can be proactive things you can do now. If you were looking at that last slide and going, I haven't done any of these things, then actually that's something you need to address now before you get to September. That would be my first focus, is what other things can I add that I've done that will make me stand out and be unique. So we're going to try out something a little bit different. So what I suggest you do is, if you might want to just have a little look at these. It might be you want to take a screenshot of this particular screen. So these are skills that I suggest most courses and employers are looking for. So it could be demonstrating how you demonstrate really good teamwork, or how you've got advanced math skills. It could be that you've demonstrated resilience when you kept going when something was really hard. It could be that you've tried multiple ideas, looking for comparisons. You might be quite scientific. You might have communicated or led, I don't know, a tutor group quiz or something through lockdown. What I'm going to ask us to do, we're going to log on to something called menti.com. I'm going to share the screen of that in a second, and you'll just need to pop in that room code. And I'm going to ask you to share a skill that you've got. So, for example, I might put mine down as teamwork, and then what you just very briefly what you've done to support it. So mine might be I'm part of my local rugby club. That would be an example of some of the things you've done, just to give people some suggestions, just to kind of get us started on there. So I'm going to share that screen with you now. I'll just get that set up. So it might be you want to have a quick look at those. Let's just add that one on there. So I'm hoping that screen shares on there now. I'll give it a go as well. So you can do this on a phone, tablet, anything like that. So if you pop into menti.com. So you can put multiple ones in. So for example, I completed an animation on UCAS. Yeah. Teamwork and water polo, school council leadership. Yeah, those would all be valid. Yeah. Give it, because I'm just aware there's a little bit of a word cap on there. If you give us some ideas of some of the things that you've done. So for example, how you've demonstrated leadership rather than the skill, because I'm just quite aware we've got a bit of a limit on characters. So let's think, captain. So hopefully this will give people, yeah, songwriting's a fantastic one. Lots of different skills in terms of that, in terms of creativity, sort of your English skills as well. Yeah. Zoom choir. Well, that's fantastic. I like the sound of that. That's excellent. Yeah. St John's Ambulance. Yeah, taking lead on that. It's a really good one. Lots of leadership, rowing. All of the things with that as well is organisation. You know, you're building that around your schedule. And I'll make sure we share some of these on as well, so you can stick some ideas on there. Community work, skiing, the dream, lovely. Yeah, pantomimes, all of those things would be really valuable examples. And if you've seen one on there that someone else has gone, you're thinking, damn, why didn't I say that? When you come to write your own, you can use all of those ideas. So this would be a really good example of kind of mind mapping all of the different things that you've done in terms of skills, and then what you've actually done in terms of building on that. So literacy, English A level, yeah, and then you might build on that, what you've done around that further to your understanding of English. It might be text you've read or shown an interest in specifically, if you were applying to a course like that. Well, I was going, man, now park runs, yeah, And that might be something that's changed a lot of people's lives. I know in terms of exercise and things, I've done a lot more running than I did before lockdown, which has been a real bonus of it, I suppose. Yeah, I'm just going to stop that there and head back to the PowerPoint. Yeah, fantastic. Fabulous. Okay, so in terms of how you might structure this then, so firstly, what I'd suggest you do in terms of your paragraphs is you follow this structure. So activity, benefit, course. So the first thing is what you've done, achieved, read or experienced. So for example, I think there was somebody on there who'd been part of the Zoom choir. Okay, so the activity that they've done, they've taken part in the Zoom school choir. How did you benefit from the activity? Well, it might, for example, it develops your sort of social skills, organisation. It might be teamwork, kind of harmonising with other singers. It might be actually sort of learning about things like lag and things on Zoom, of how it might not be as easy, not being able to have sort of face-to-face contact with everyone. Yeah, teamwork, interpersonal skills, creativity, rhythm. And then course, well, how does that relate to the course you're applying for? So for example, you were looking at something like a music course or music and performance. Well, actually that you're comfortable singing sort of towards your computer to lots of different people who might be on the end of that call. It might be that you're learning to work with a range of people. If I take another one, the St John's Ambulance one and leadership, you'd definitely be using that. You'd also be learning interpersonal skills, hearing about sort of potential accidents or what's happened to people on the day. That would be really relevant to studying something like being a paramedic. Okay, you've shown that you've got qualities, you might be able to deal with people who are quite flustered or under pressure, and calming them down would be a really good example. In terms of the general structure of the whole statement then, so the first chunk is why you're choosing the course. And this is probably the biggest chunk of the whole statement. So what's your interest in the subject area? So if we go with geography, what aspects of geography? Is it human, physical? Within that, what else helps influence it? Are your current studies related? Now, it might be that you're picking something for your degree that you've studied at A level, and that's quite an obvious link. If you're not picking something that you've studied at A level, it might be thinking about what skills you've gained. So, for example, if you were looking at journalism, well, you might have studied history or politics at A level, and actually you might have gained looking at different evidence. You might have done a lot of work with sources such as speeches, and that might prepare you for how you'd like to critically analyse some of that work. How does it help your career aspirations? So if you're looking at journalism, well, what's the dream? Is it that you're going to run things online? Is it a case that you want to write for quite a large newspaper? Is it that you seek to be maybe more of a daily writer or have your own sort of angle for maybe a magazine? How does it look? Work experience and volunteering. So what have you done that is relevant? So for example, you were looking at nursing, or have you maybe, for example, as a part-time job, done some care work, or demonstrated that if you're looking at teaching, even things like babysitting would be an example of how you're showing that you're willing to work with youngsters and that you're quite responsible. Achievements, responsibilities or training. So if you've got any certificates from school, if you had an opportunity to be head boy or head girl, might be a tutor group rep for school council. It might be that we've talked about Duke of Edinburgh. I'm trying to think of some other ones. You might have done something with air cadets. That can be quite a popular one, or scouts. It might be that you were captain of your school team or something like that as well. Extracurricular activities and hobbies. Again, I wouldn't worry too much about this. One's a little bit smaller, but it also gives us a bit more of a flavour about you. So is it okay? It can be fine that you did it socially. You know, you played rugby because it helps you relax. And also it's working with friends. It might be that you like, I don't know, yoga or mindfulness in your spare time, that helps you relax, anything like that at all. It might be that you have a real interest in walking and exploring the outdoors. That would be fine. You can give some examples on there. They're mainly going to be looking at that, why do you want to study the course? So this one probably would be the smallest of your paragraphs, and if you feel you're going over your word count, these are generally the 3 and 4 are the ones I would tend to trim a little bit. And the last bit is just a couple of lines, just remind us, as you would in any essay, what's your conclusion? Why should we pick you to study at our university? So it can just be a recap. I think I'd be a really good candidate for this course because, and then just recap your main points. Final couple of bits then, if you're applying for more than one course, so for example, it might be a major in business with hospitality or criminology and law, you only get to write one personal statement. So you need to talk about both subjects equally. And obviously, if you're going to apply for 2 courses in this manner, you might need to think about, do you need to make sure all 5 of your choices are a major and minor? You've only got one statement. Can you identify links between the subjects? So what skills would you need for both of those courses? And then I'd look at all the different course choices and find the right balance for you. So you might take a little bit longer narrowing them down. Final thing really in terms of what to watch out for on personal statements is plagiarism. So all personal statements are screened by UCAS copycatch, and if there's more than 10% similarity to another statement that they've ever had, then they will be flagged up. Okay, all universities that you apply for will be notified by this, and as a result they would reject your application. So you need to make sure that you submit your own work. What will happen when you hit the sort of send button on your UCAS? It will be first go to your tutors and your head of sixth, so they'll get a chance to proofread it and flag up if there are any issues before it's sent on to university. Now, I'm going to have a go at sharing some audio, which is always a bit of a chaotic thing to do on this. I'm not quite sure how it works. So this is just a little recap of our top tips. So I'll send a couple of links on to Dr. Rowe. There's a document on UCAS that you can log into, which is like a live document, which will help break up the paragraphs for you, which is really useful for a draft. On our page, there's also a UCAS survival pack, which helps chunk all those activities up, and just a recap of the different things that you need to do. So I'm hoping. Can't play. Right, so in terms of our 5 top tips, mainly talk about the course was the first one. It was actually just a dynamic of running through those clips there. Now, the final things I just mentioned, why you might think about us as your choice. 95% of our graduates in employment or further study within 6 months. We're linked with over 500 courses across all sectors, so it's very, very employable, and particularly within that region of South East Wales. 25 of our courses or more studied over 95% for student satisfaction, and we are the best for student satisfaction in courses like accounting, midwifery, and geography and environmental studies are sort of top 6 in the UK. So there's lots of reasons to look at picking USW. Final things just to end on then. If you want to register onto an open day, we do have that live feature at the moment. I don't know if you've gone through this with them, Dr. Rowe, but there's a virtual HE fair with over 100 universities online next week between 12 and 6, which you can register with at UK University Search. You can talk to academics from our stand and all other universities in terms of those live talks and seminars and things, all completely free. So it's a really, really good opportunity. That short clip on how to write a personal statement, our UCAS video in terms of how to apply are all on our resource page, and that's our general email there as well. So if you do want to take a sort of print screen or screenshot, that can be quite useful in where to go next. I'm going to go back onto that that Menti screen just to end with. The only reason is I just think sometimes people seem to ask more questions on that format than the other one. So I'm just going to pop that back up. He says. So if you do want to pop any questions in there, I'll just hang around for sort of 5-10 minutes if there are any extras. They are completely anonymous as well, so if that helps, there's no such thing as a stupid question. I guarantee from every talk we do live or remote, every question we get, at least 3 other people in the audience are thinking the same thing. So if you've got any, I'm more than happy to hear them. They can be personal statements, Network 75, student USW, UCAS applications, or anything like that at all.
Thank you ever so much, Oliver. And if anyone's got any questions, please just email us or use the question and answer tool. Also, I basically wanted to sort of point you in the right direction. We've got our YouTube channel, which has lots of videos to support you with personal statements. We've got videos to support you with carrying out a UCAS search. We've also got, if you're looking at apprenticeships, we've got videos to support you with that. I've also sent out our UCAS guide, which takes you through every aspect of writing a personal statement. And over the next few weeks, we're going to concentrate on different aspects of the UCAS application. So at the moment, we're focusing on basically exploring university opportunities, exploring apprenticeships. We're going to do a workshop on writing personal statements, and then we're going to do a workshop on completing the application form. So if you go on the if you go on the Radyr Sixth Form YouTube site, you will see lots of videos taking you through every aspect of the application for that. So just put into Google Radyr Sixth Form plus YouTube, and you will get to our site where there's lots and lots of information.
Okay,
Thank
so we've got
you so much, Oliver. This has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to listen to this webinar. And Oliver, is there a copy of it that we can actually?
Yeah, what I'll do, I will export it as a PDF. The personal statement session, just the personal statements bit, you can watch as a live presentation on that resource page. So I'll send a link to that as well. I'll tweet it out as well in a minute. I'll just run through a couple of these questions because they might be useful for everyone. So are there any extracurricular activities that universities don't care about? I would say it's not worthwhile putting things that are going to come across as you being quite negative. So for example, if the only social activity you can think of is you like to go drinking at the pub, I wouldn't put that. It's just in terms of that's how you're going to come across. Okay, so if you can't think of anything positive, have a look in lockdown and find yourself a hobby, but do consider it that way. There's nothing specifically that I would say that they don't really care about, but it's not going to be the most important thing. So I would say why you want to do the course, work experience, extra reading around the subject are going to be more important than those aspects, if that makes sense.
On that, Oliver, we've emailed all students our careers and resources guide, and it has a big section on supercurricular activities. So every subject is broken down into different sort of supercurricular activities you can do to find and explore subjects. So that would be really useful.
Yeah. What's the average size of a personal statement? Well, they are 47 lines long or 4,000 characters. Most people tend to fill this or within 10% of filling it. If it's not, I would try writing a draft, get a couple of people to read it and seek some advice of how you can expand it, because generally that's the problem. Lots of people tend to write too much rather than not enough. What's the ultimate cutoff point for word count in these statements? So it's 4,000 characters and it literally just cuts it off. Okay, so if you had 4,010, it could end mid-word. Okay, when you copy and paste it into UCAS. There are little tricks that you can try. So for example, if you've left a line out, that will count as a character, so you could cut that out. Sometimes things like that can help. But generally with a few proofreads, most people do about 4 or 5 drafts just to get it to really flow.
What the way to set it up, Oliver, is that basically what we're asking students to do is they will work on a personal statement with their form tutor. When their form tutor is happy that the personal state is of a good standard, they will then say paste it to the UCAS website and check it absolutely fits perfectly. Yeah. And the form tutor then will sign off the statement ready to come to me as a referee or my deputy, Miss Jones. But the reason we ask them to do that is for two reasons. One, very often students will say that their form tutor is happy with the statement, and they may not be happy with the statement. They may be trying to sort of jump the queue to get us to obviously process the applications. And the other reason we do it is sometimes a statement might be really good, and then a form tutor will pass it, but when it doesn't quite fit on the form, and then students start cutting it to try and get it to fit, and it doesn't read as well. So that's why we try to go through that.
How much is a pint in Cardiff compared to other cities? To be fair, you probably know some of this better than I do in terms of living locally. I'm actually based near Bristol. I would say a pint in Bristol, to give you an idea, is about £5, I would have thought, in most places. So it's probably a little bit cheaper. London will be quite a lot more than that. The areas in the north of England would be cheaper. The best thing to look at would be, I'm trying to think, the UK Student Guide. There's lots of different, or the student rooms. Those types of things will give you sort of prices of people who are out and about there. Also, students are going to be the best people to ask in terms of where to go for a cheap option. How much do you write about your hobbies and extracurricular activities? So in terms of about 4,000 characters, it's a bit of a how long is a piece of string, because it does depend a little bit how they flow and fit into your statement. I would be thinking around 500 characters as a rough guide. Might be a little bit more than that, 500 to 700. That would probably be the top end for hobbies and extracurricular. But by that, I suppose if the extracurricular is very tied into your course, so for example, if it was Model United Nations and you were looking at doing politics, it might be quite a lot higher than that, just because of how related it would be to the course.
One thing that is worth mentioning, Oliver, on that is that we may get the odd student who will apply for Oxford and Cambridge, and they will be very open that they don't read any extracurricular activities. Yes. But remember, you are applying for 4 other universities that do care about extracurricular activities and put great value on it. So you can't, you will be very foolish to write a personal statement and not talk about your extracurricular activities just because one of your choices is Oxford and Cambridge.
And to give you an example of that, I suppose our admissions team will always make you a personalised offer to you based on your statement. So if there's something in your extracurricular that you've really talked about that we think is pretty unique and pretty amazing, you may find that you get an offer related to that as well. How much my personal statement should be about work experience due to the current circumstances? Yeah, really tough one, this one. I think there's a little bit of being creative. We all understand that it's really hard for your year at the moment. So I suppose it's about thinking about things that you can do that maybe show a bit of initiative. So I would say even things like, as I said, developing blogs. It could be, if you study geography as your subject, could you maybe make some revision resources in geography, put them up on YouTube? You're showing that you're being creative, you're thinking about it, you're approaching things in a different way. Obviously, when things like, some of you might on the flip side have done loads of work in things like supermarkets, so we will take into account that those work experience opportunities might not be there, particularly those really specific ones. If you go on to things like our nursing page on Twitter, I believe they've got some ideas in terms of how some students have gone about getting relevant work experience in that particular field. But it is a really tricky one. Keep your ears open for opportunities, even things like, I suppose, jobs around the house, learning to cook, learning how to support your family in that sense would be relevant in terms of learning skills and sort of applying yourselves in that sense as well. Where are we? Hang on, all my questions have disappeared.
Oliver, you've already mentioned this, but I keep stressing it all the time. The MOOCs are fantastic. The massive open online courses, are brilliant because you can explore a subject, and you can find out if you're interested in studying that further, or it might be a potential career in the future. And also, it gives you great material for a personal statement. So if you're going to look at one website for that, look at FutureLearn. FutureLearn is a website that has all that, And all of you have access to Unifrog, which has a MOOC tool as well, which is able to search for these courses from all over the world.
So does volunteering experience have to be relevant to the subject you're applying to? I'm going to use my personal experience for this one. So I did my work experience at a job centre. So I was handling sort of the database and working behind the scenes there, and I did history for my degree. So I would say they weren't directly that relevant, but in my personal statement, I talked about how I'd learned things like organisation, time management. Those were the sorts of things I sort of cherry picked out of that work experience. So I dealt with lots of different customers and speaking to people from all walks of life, but organisation and time management were the two things I really picked up. How did that relate to studying history? Well, actually, I knew I was going to be doing a lot of independent reading, and I'd have to manage sort of how effectively I built that evidence up for essays. So that would be an example. Any kind of volunteering or work experience, you're going to gain a couple of skills. So think about what do you have to do on a daily basis. You will find a skill that will be relevant to the subject. But saying that, if you can get experience that's really directly relevant, then brilliant. But if not, there'll be key skills that you can cherry pick out and apply them across. Do you play pro clubs? I assume by this you're meaning in terms of university sports teams playing professional sides. University sport, there's quite a lot of opportunities. What you'll tend to do, you'll play all other universities in like what's called the Bucks leagues. The standard there is pretty impressive in terms of typically you'll be training 5 or 6 times a week. In terms of opportunities to play other clubs, there are opportunities in terms of being scouted, but you wouldn't directly play professional teams in that sense. Due to Corona, many of us have missed out on work experience opportunities. Will these mean the work experience requirements on some specific courses will be lowered? That is a very, very good question. Yes, there will be some amendments coming out to those. At the moment, I don't think courses have necessarily announced them for the academic year you're applying in, because we don't quite know when we're going to be going back. But I believe there will be some amendments to those things. As I've said before, the courses that tend to require specific work experience are things like nursing, social work, are the big two. There are, as I've sort of suggested, I would get on Age UK. There are lots of opportunities to build up work experience for those courses. The other one would be teaching. As I've suggested, things like developing your own resources. You could offer, if you've got sort of family friends or things like Zoom tutorials or Skype tutorials of subjects. That would be you showing real initiative to do something different and actually developing some of those skills that would be relevant to being a teacher. Would basing your individual challenge in Welsh back around the topic you want to study at university be useful for personal statement? Sorry, I'm just going to. Apologies. I've got some neighbours jumping on a trampoline outside. Would basing your individual challenge? Yes. Yeah, that would be a really sensible idea. There's no reason I would say that. I think that's quite sensible. It shows you by picking it for your Welsh back, you're obviously going to do a lot of research and become quite involved with it, which shows your personal drive and all the kind of qualities of why you want to do it.
We have lots of students who do that, Oliver, and we recommend it because if they're asked for interview or they go on a visit day, they nearly always get asked, and they say that's what made their statement stand out, because you're able to do a piece of research on a topic you love. So why, if you're saying in your personal statement that you always want to do psychology and that's the subject that really interests you, you've got an opportunity to do a piece of research on the subject that you love and like. So if you choose something different, it's a bit strange, it's a bit odd.
And the last couple, can you send university accommodation if you're doing Network 75? Yes, I believe you can. The only thing I would suggest with that might be, depending on where your work is based, it might not be right by the sort of Treforest campus. You might find actually that you might want to live kind of equidistant or somewhere in the middle. You might find that you'd rather be based in Cardiff, for example. But yes, I believe that is an option. And how many people apply for Network 75? Is it very competitive? Yes. So degree apprenticeships are generally much more competitive than university courses in terms of the amount of applicants. Obviously, that's not including things like medicine, veterinary and dentistry, or some courses we have very competitive like nursing, but generally they're more competitive just on that basis that you've got much a good guaranteed job rate afterwards, or increased job rate, only slightly, but it is 100%. And the other thing would be, of course, that you're getting paid through it, and some people would rather have that money and not have a student loan, and sort of have the repayments afterwards. So I don't know the exact figures in terms of applicants. I don't know if Dr. Rowe's got some ideas in terms of how many you've had at Radyr who've applied for it. But absolutely, you can apply for both. So I would, if you're interested in Network 75, I'd get a UCAS application in, so you've got a plan B, smash it and really go and chase Network 75. And if you can get that, perfect. And if not, you've still got a degree option afterwards.
Yeah, I would.
How many universities offer degree apprenticeships Network 75? So Network 75 is unique as our degree apprenticeship. I don't know why I keep doing that, the questions. Is a unique offer at USW. Other universities will have similar schemes. In terms of universities that offer degree apprenticeships, I think most of them do now. It's only really been kind of picking up momentum in the last few years. So you might have to shop around a little bit in terms of what courses are available. I'd say it's pretty good for courses in computing, engineering, lots of STEM courses and business. There aren't as many opportunities for things like more kind of humanity subjects for degree apprenticeships at the moment. So it sort of depends what kind of skill set you're looking for, because obviously the employer is wanting to train somebody up for sort of specialist skills. So a kind of classic example of a degree apprenticeship employer might be somebody like Airbus, for example. So big sort of flight provider and designing aircraft, and they would be an example of an employer in that sense.
Now, if you're a student who's looking for a degree apprenticeship, we've made a 5-minute, it's about a 5-minute film on our YouTube channel, and it shows you the different ways you can search for these opportunities. And there's some great websites out there, things like allaboutschoolleavers.co.uk, Not Going to Uni. They're Rate Your Apprenticeship. They're really good. There's also the Career Wales search engine allows you to search for these opportunities, and we'll talk you through it. If you watch that video, you can see how to do it. We've had a few people every year apply for Network 75. What we have to stress, and they will stress this as well when they've come into school, you have to apply for other things as well, because you may go right the way through the Network 75 scheme and you may have a company and they may pull out at the last minute. So it's good to apply for that alongside UCAS. This year we had a student who, after results day, their company unfortunately pulled out, but they ended up going to University of South Wales and studying a different course. So those options were there, but it's good to have some alternatives.
Perfect. Okay, I think that is all of our questions in terms of what we've had. Thank you so much for the number of you taking part today. You are so far my remote champions in terms of numbers. Some excellent questions as well, and thank you so much for taking real part in that Menti bit as well. It's nice to try and make these things as dynamic as we can do with the tools that are out there. And yeah, and thank you, Dr. Rowe. I'd like to say I'll send you it over as a PDF, and I will put some of these links and attach you to the tweet as well, just so you've got some of those tools there ready to crack on, and hopefully some really successful applications for 2021.
Brilliant. Thank you, Oliver. And thank you everyone for watching. And I must say the resources on that website, the South Wales Schools and Colleges resources, are brilliant, and it is so helpful. And please just email me if you need anything. And I look forward to seeing everyone back in school in a few weeks' time.
Cheerio.
Thanks, Oliver. Thank you. Bye, everyone.